Hello, everyone. I'm Ariella Morkowitz, the founding director of SVIVAH. SVIVAH is about creating a more nourishing communal faith experience for Jewish women, where we define both Jewish and women very broadly. If you want to be with us, we want you to be with us and welcome. We love that we are multi-generational and diverse in our backgrounds and our affiliations. We come together in celebration and support of women, our strengths, our unique perspectives, our special ways of walking through the world, and how we contribute to the world, and an opportunity to learn with and from each other. HerTorah is a SVIVAH program under the direction of the fantastic Rabbanit Eliza Sperling, and is dedicated to bringing together our diverse community of women to meet and discover people who we might not cross paths with organically, coming together to engage with each other deeply over our shared foundational texts. And our goal is to use our foundational texts as an opportunity for true community and connection building. And it's a space that's fused and filled by our lived experience, the value that we bring just by our unique selves. And it's wrapped up with a beautiful bow by the incredible educators who come and gather us around the HerTorah table. Quickly, I want to just thank from the bottom of my heart the people who make HerTorah possible every time that we gather. First, Rabbanit Eliza Sperling, for your vision and thoughtfulness and creativity in designing and building these rooms where we get to gather, learning with and from each other. To Yeshivat Maharat, who thank you for your partnership in raising the bar for excellence in Torah scholarship and elevating women's voices. And a big thank you to the Aviv and Covenant Foundations for your faith in HerTorah to create a unique way of learning together in community. This month of Elul, leading up to the high holidays, is actually a departure from how we usually do HerTorah. Once upon a time, we were together in person. Then we moved to Zoom, which has been such an actual silver lining because our community has broadened and brought us the gift of women from all over the world, actually, which is such a delight. And now we wanted to take this month where it's either the last looks of summer for you, or school is starting, or wherever everybody may be. It is definitely a hectic month leading up to these high holidays, which will be upon us before we know it. So what we wanted to do is take a moment and focus on, instead of the little Zoom boxes of all of us gathered around a table, we wanted to gather together our phenomenal educators. And I'm running through the list visually in my head of the roster of incredible humans who have agreed to come and let us learn with and from them this month leading up to these high holidays, with such immense gratitude, because all of them are so different and so unique in how they're thinking about this month of preparation before Rosh Hashanah, and thinking about how to walk into this new year, given the year that we've all just had. And I'm just so grateful for them giving of their time and giving of themselves yet again to hold all of us. So we wanted to take this month to lift them up, while they lift all of the rest of us up with their teaching. So if you can take a minute to go run over to our website, svivah.org, and you can sign up for our mailing list to make sure that you get every single one of these interviews in your inbox. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, but I can guarantee you that not a single one of these interviews is like the other. And each of our scholars and thinkers and leaders has had something so delightful and fantastic to offer. I don't want you to miss a single one. I am so excited to have Rabbi Sarah Tasman here with us today. This is like so full circle in so many ways, because what can I call you? Rabbi Sarah?
Yeah.
Rabbi Sarah, you were our first HerTorah teacher before there was HerTorah. Which was so amazing on that fateful, amazing Hanukkah night 100 bazillion years ago, where I can just see you in my mind's eye helping light the Hanukkah candles and be surrounded by a glow of light, and just a room full of women who were just eager for an opportunity to gather in exactly the way that has become the norm. And the fact that you were there to kick us off and start us off with just bringing us all together in learning was such a gift, and it's so nice to have you back now. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Can I sing your praises for a little bit?
Please.
Okay. Rabbi Sarah is the founder of the Tasman Center for Jewish Creativity, where I don't even know how to encapsulate what you do. I just am a giant fan of how you do and what you bring to Judaism. I think for me personally, having met you so many years ago, you've, for me, been this beautiful conduit of kavanah, someone who just inspires in me intentionality in my spirituality, in my Judaism, in my practice. And I think that is how you are in so much of what you do, thinking through your mindfulness and your experiential spirituality and everything that you bring. In addition to all of that, you happen to be a mikvah guide trainer, which is something near and dear to my heart. And you are a rabbi without borders. Mm-hmm. And you've done work with interfaith families too. The thing that I love, spying on you through social media, through this entire crazy pandemic time, is that you're still an officiant of weddings, which you've always been.
Yeah.
And I can imagine how special it is to have you under somebody's chuppah wedding canopy. But the fact that you've actually been able to maintain doing that and being present for a couple's happiest of moments during this crazy time that is full of a lot of loss. It's been so nice to see you still doing that. So like for me, watching you still bringing couples together and starting families has been such a hopeful piece of the pandemic for me. And I'm just like really, it was glad to spy on you still doing that through all this time.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. And I wanted to ask you, because I know many of our conversations have always been about, the ebb and flow of the Jewish calendar, and your work. I know you've done a lot of work with At the Well, bringing your wisdom there, definitely focusing on the months of the year and the cycles of the Jewish year. Can you share with us a little bit about this month of Elul in particular, and like this practice of teshuvah that we're supposed to be focusing on during this month and lead up into the high holidays?
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say I'm so delighted to be here, and I feel so honored and lucky to be part of SVIVAH and part of HerTorah, and one of the lucky educators that gets to have one of these conversations with you. So thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure.
So Elul is a container of time, and it's a time for preparation, spiritual preparation before Rosh Hashanah. And I've been thinking a lot about entering Rosh Hashanah this year, and we're entering the second Jewish year of the pandemic, and it feels like a very uncertain time for me. I don't even know next week if I'm gonna do any Rosh Hashanah stuff with other people in person, or just at home with my husband and our baby. It's it's a week away, and maybe we're zooming in, and maybe that's it, and I don't know. And it feels so liminal and uncertain. And Elul is always a time of transition, because it's a time of saying goodbye to the previous year and a time to get ready to welcome the new year. And so much of Jewish ritual is about marking transitions and marking liminal space. And this year during Elul, it feels so much more liminal than it has in the past. And I've been thinking a lot about the word teshuvah, which is one of the words that's sort of a theme for this time of year, for Elul and for Tishrei, the whole time of the high holidays. And teshuvah literally means return. Usually it's thought of as repentance and making amends and asking for forgiveness and those kind of aspects of it. But I'm thinking about teshuvah this year from a mindfulness perspective, as an opportunity to return just to oneself, one's breath. And when I try to sit down to lead a meditation or do my own meditation practice, that's all I'm trying to do is return inward, return to myself, return to my breath. And so really just thinking about teshuvah as a big exhale, like teshuvah as a practice to help me flow through Rosh Hashanah and flow through this new year this year, which feels so uncertain. That's where I'm finding some of that grounding. And that's how I'm thinking about teshuvah this year.
When you married this concept of teshuvah and centering yourself and focusing on yourself, which I appreciate, because I think so often I personally get caught up in the framing of repentance rather than return. And it's actually something that, yes, all the things that I did wrong, but it's also in reference to others, right? I'm reflecting on my relationships and who I am in the world. And it's not as internally focused as, to my core and my essence. And I was actually just thinking the other day, one of the, in this upheaval of what this time of year is turning out to be, one of the things that I'm missing again during this month of Elul is hearing the shofar being blown every day. Not that I heard it every day, I think probably in my whole life, unless I was a little kid in school maybe. But at least once before walking into synagogue services for Rosh Hashanah, I'd have heard the shofar before in Elul, which is that amazing call to action. And just now when you were breathing that like exhale of teshuvah, it's like, oh, the almost like, okay, maybe I can grab onto that. Maybe that will be like the breath release of the blowing of a shofar. Maybe that can be it for me this year. And that's such a really powerful centering. I like that a lot, and I'm going to try that one because I've missed that shofar wake up call.
Yeah.
And I'd love to replace it with something. I think that. Given this upheaval and given this craziness of like, I don't even think we can have the headspace yet to reflect backward while we're still trying to figure out, find the solid footing to move forward. Can you share something with us about, what are you taking into this new year to give us something to kind of hang on to?
Yeah, so I agree. It's extremely hard to even look back at the past year because to me, this year is such a blur. And the whole last 18 months is a little bit of a blur. And really the only thing that's sort of helping me mark time is the growth of my son, my baby, who is going to have his Hebrew birthday this Friday. He was born on the 26th of Elul. Just before Rosh Hashanah. And so he's about to turn 1. And that's the only thing that's like helping me mark time right now. But what I'm holding on to going into this year is that this is a Shemitah year in the Jewish calendar, which means it's a sabbatical year, which comes every 7 years. And I feel like this is a really amazing opportunity to think about what might it be like to give myself a personal experience of Shemitah this year? Traditionally, Shemitah is, it's agricultural rules that apply only in the land of Israel. And so living outside of the land of Israel, it's sort of hard to wrap your mind around like, well, what does Shemitah even have to do with me? Because I'm not a farmer. I don't live in Israel. But thinking about the core aspects of Shemitah from a mindfulness perspective, which is what I do, which is what that's a lot of what I teach about, is how to kind of take the core, basic concepts of Jewish teachings and thinking about them on a really personal, mindful and meaningful way. So if Shemitah this year, to me, it's about pulling back a little bit and making space And one of the things that I've been thinking about during this Elul is creating the space to have more room to create. And what if I put less energy into producing and gave myself the space and time and energy to have a little bit more room to create? And during this pandemic time, I feel like Jewish organizations and Jewish educators and rabbis have been producing so much and so much amazing stuff and amazing creativity that's come out of this pandemic. And I want everyone to give themselves permission to have Shemitah, even if it's just like in this tiny little way of having a little bit more space to release something, release some pressure. One aspect of Shemitah is releasing debts or releasing grudges or releasing pressure that we hold ourselves to. Mm-hmm. And so this month of Elul, I've been trying to give myself time at least once a week to paint.
Wow.
And just to have.
Is that one of yours behind you?
Yeah, I've been working on this this week. Wow. I was actually listening to one of the Elul HerTorah interviews while I was painting with my dear friend Rabbi Jessie Dressen.
Amazing.
So I was watching hers. Yeah, so I'm taking this concept that's really inspiring to me about Shemitah, about trying to create more space and what that might feel like. And I felt like I had to really do that during Elul so that I could go into this year doing that. It wasn't, for me, I didn't want to just say, oh, I'm going to do that later. I'm going to do that after the high holidays, or I'm going to do that later this year. It was really important to me to begin that practice right now.
The idea of separating creativity from productivity is profound for me. The idea that those two acts can actually be separated and divorced from each other, that being creative can be something that's actually so internal and not productive, and permission to do that is so liberating. To be able to be creative for creativity's sake, for oneself, rather than to be producing something and forcing your creativity to be productive.
And it's a totally radical idea to even consider giving ourselves that permission and that space, and thinking about it with the intention, with the kavanah of it being a part of a Shemitah practice makes it, to me, something really holy and sacred to try to do this year.
Yes. The idea of carving out space and permitting oneself, or even forcing oneself to embrace creativity just for creativity's sake. Only good can come from that. Like, I know that like even just allowing the release from the pressure of producing something creative, and just being allowed to make the cake that you're going to eat by yourself and not have to worry that it's like perfect and just right for the friend you're supposed to deliver it to who just had a baby, or paint on top of the painting you just made and say, like, this was nice. I enjoyed the experience of being creative during Elul, and now it's a new month. I'm going to paint on top of this. No one will ever see it, but I experienced it for myself. There's something so powerful in just allowing yourself to do that without having it to have to be anything at all other than that activity. I love that.
To me, just this simple act of squeezing the paint out and then painting it on the canvas, to me, it's like I'm in this sort of meditative flow space. And it's like, I'm not worried about all these other things on my to-do list or what I have to do next. It's like this amazing thing that just helps me totally drop into being present in the moment. And I've worked for a long time to cultivate this sort of freedom from pressure of what it has to look like, what the final product has to look like. And every time I teach, I really try to help people unlearn that, that self, pressure of what it has to look like, and just to allow themselves to express themselves in a way that they probably don't express themselves on a regular basis. So that's why I love incorporating art or writing or painting or drawing or collage in a workshop, because to me it is a spiritual practice when you allow something, that little spark of something that's inside, to have just the space to come forth and to come into fruition is also a holy act.
I love having been part of some of your teaching, where that the art is so beautifully woven into your teaching. What you're saying is so poignant, and I think so many of us need permission to not. I mean, what it should look like, again, is a focus on the productivity rather than the process. And I'm going to tell everybody that if you're looking for a beautiful guide and a beautiful way to start some learning for this year that really embraces this idea, it's been a gift to learn with you. And the idea of tuning into this art piece and creative expression while learning. You do it so beautifully, and I would love to see more people go to your classes are so nicely on Zoom now.
Yes.
Which is amazing, and just have a chance to kind of like the things that I've seen some of your students produce are all so different and so stunning, and it's because there's such a beautiful, honest expression of self. And it's amazing that you bring that out with your students. It's a gift and a totally different facet of teaching that I really appreciate tremendously. Rabbi Sarah, thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for lifting up my Elul. And I love that I get to see a glimpse into what your Elul is like through your artwork. And thank you for sharing this time. I wanna wish you a Shana Tova, you and your beautiful family, and a happy birthday early to your little munchkin.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna encourage everybody again to go to our website, SVIVAH.org, and sign up so that we can send you all of these amazing interviews, and you can just sit and listen to them when the moment hits. But if we don't see you again, Shana Tova, may it be good, may it be sweet, may it be healthy for all of us. Thank you.
Amen.